This is a Miraidon EX matchup guide. I've been playing a lot of Miraidon recently. I thought it'd be pretty good if I went over everything Miraidon. I'm going to be talking about if you go first or second, what list you should be playing as Miraidon right now for different metas and what you expect. We're going to be going over all these matchups from Charizard EX, Chien-Pao, Roaring Moon, Giratina, Lost Zone, Miraidon, all this stuff. I cut Lugia off from the last matchup guide I did and replaced it with Inteleon because Inteleon's been getting a lot more traction right now, and I thought it'd be more important to go over that while not many people are playing Lugia. So let's talk about the list. So the lists, there are two basically main versions of this deck that have come out, and then a few adaptations from those versions. I'm going to be going through three lists. This is the one that Joe won LAIC with. Probably the most popular list. If you play against a Miraidon list, this is what you're going to be playing against. And if you want to play Miraidon, this is definitely the first one that you look at. So there's a few issues with this deck in general. It's a lot slower than other like turbo lists of this deck. You're not really hitting a ton of generators on turn one. The turn one Iron Hands is possible, but you don't get it every game, making your Miraidon matchup worse. But you do have parts which do have quite a big range of application right now. And a lot of decks aren't really expecting paths, so I do like this list in general. I think the list is good, but I don't know if this is my favorite concept. Personally, the concept that I like right now is the turbo version of the deck. There's this list, this is the top 16 list from LAIC and the most popular version of this list, of this deck. I think that Peony is an insanely strong card right now. This list running 1, gets you your electric generators on turn 1, which is super important because if you want to hit turn 1 Iron Hands, when I'm going through the matchups, you're going to see that a lot of them you kind of are relying on getting bailed out by turn 1 Iron Hands if you're opting second into a situation where you don't really be wanting to go second. Because I do think with both of these decks, my personal opinion is that blind, I think you're supposed to be going second because there are quite a few matchups where it's really, really important that you go second. With turbo, you're definitely supposed to opt second. With paths, it's more considerable. There's a lot of more, wider range of matchups you could really want to be going first. And then we've seen the more recent version from Sagen, and I played, this is the list I played to Gdansk Regionals. This Peony version of the deck, even more turbo with 18 energies and just straight for Peony. So just try and drop Peony on turn 1, electric generator, guarantee turn 1 Iron Hands basically. If you've ever played against this deck with Iron Hands, it's like near impossible that they whiff the amp you very much on turn 1. So it was a big thing, and then I can always opt second. A lot of games are going to be going second, so I really like this list and I really like the concept. It doesn't feel like I brick as often. Missing generators like never happens. And it's pretty important if you look at the stats of different generator, like you compare generators, basically every single time you play a generator with this list, it has over 50% hit 2 energies. At least in the early game. When it gets to the later game, obviously you can thin down a lot of energies and then not have as many energies in deck to hit, to have really high odds to hit 2 energies. But at least in the early game, like the turn 1s, turn 2s, after you've thinned with Miraidon, even if like you prize a few energies or a lot of like different things can happen, in general you're always over 50%, and sometimes if you get really fortunate with not drawing as many energies, you can get into those 70% ranges to hit 2 off generator, which means like, you know, your expected value off 2 generators is going up to like normally like 3. I really like this list of the deck and I think it'd be worth trying, and I am most experienced with turbo. I do currently think that turbo is the best version. I think as the formats progresses, turbo is going to become played even more. I know the most about turbo, and a lot of the things I'm going to be saying is going to be turbo, but they're going to be relating to turbo. Now the first matchup we're going to go over is the Charizard EX matchup. I have played a lot of this matchup actually. It's pretty popular, and I played it a lot in the tournament I played in. Hit it three times, won 2 out of 3 with my turbo version. So how do you win this matchup? So obviously path is super strong, and there's the 2 versions, there's the Evo Zard and the Pidgeot Zard. In my opinion, if you're playing turbo, you should go second into both of them. I had opponents opt first. I had Magnus Peterson opt first into me as Pidgeot Zard in this matchup. I think he's wrong. I think you're supposed to go second because essentially you're just trying to get them with as slow a setup as possible, which if they only get like 1 VIP turn 1, it happened to me in the event. I opted second against a Evo Zard and they only got 1 Charmander turn 1 and it just died. Because their turn 1 support is obviously they can't play Arven turn 1. They don't have a very strong turn 1 in general. So, but I do have a few more strategies for this. So I would opt second, probably as both. You can opt first as the path version. I think that's a little bit better. I think it's like more valid, but I do think opting second because Zard really wants to be going second most of the time. But I do have some tech for the matchup. So I have a few strategies you can do. Now, you never basically, I want you to know that you never ever go, basically never go into a Charizard EX, go into taking 2 prizes, so take your second prize. So for example, Amp, without at least a way for a Pokemon to survive. So at least a theoretical way. So let's say one of your options is you turn 1 Amp, but you do it with a Bravery Charm. Or you don't take 2 prizes on turn 1, you kill with Raikou or something. You never want to go into the 2 prize range because what's going to happen is they're just going to Charizard EX, kill whatever you have active, and then you have no response to that Charizard EX. You need to make sure that never happens. Because if you're in that position, you never win. You literally never win. So there's a few different ways you can do that. Now, the main thing you're going to end up doing is attack you with Miraidon's Photon Blaster into Amp. I think this is one of the strongest plays in the matchup, is taking 3 prizes on a Charizard EX using those 2 things. And then you have a few other ways you can sort of make the prize race make sense. So if you go Raikou turn 1, so one thing I did in the tournament, this is one strategy. There's a lot of strategies. I'm going to go over as many as possible. But the first strategy that I think is really strong is if you Raikou turn 1 and then you have no Pokemon on board that basically die to 210 damage. So you have no Mew EX, you have Squawk that has, you don't have Squawk. This is possible to happen, especially in the games where you go first, but this isn't the best strategy, I think, but it's something I did and I won a game with it. So, but essentially you go Raikou, you kill them, they kill your Raikou, and now they have taken 4 prizes, you've only taken 1. So they have no way, because they don't have Defiance Belt. Sometimes they have Vitality Band, but that still doesn't break through Iron Hands. But I Bravery Charm my Miraidon and then punch with it, and they basically couldn't take a 2 prize knockout on anything on my board. So I just went, all right, Amp, kill it, and take 3 prizes, and then I had a really easy route to kill a Pidgeot or take 2 on the next turn with Iron Hands on the next turn. And they had no response to that. So that was one of the easy ways to win. I think it is worth noting this is a very bad matchup. So, and then if you're playing like Path version, you can go for a slightly different strat. Like if you take no prizes on turn 1, not even attacking with Raikou, just kill with nothing. And then you go straight into Miraidon and then kill with Iron Hands, take 3 and play Path or kill Pidgeot. Like a few different ways to do this. Kill Pidgeot, Path, or Path, and then take the knockout and then pray you survive the next turn is also possible with a Bravery Charm on. They have very high odds of hitting Vacuum, but if you have Path and Bravery Charm in play, it's going to be more difficult for them. But in general, a lot of the time they can just take the 2 prize kill, and if you're that far behind, you're almost never winning. So bad matchup, but that's my strategy to beat it. Next one is Chien-Pao. So personally, do you go first or second? I'm pretty sure that it's better. I think it's supposed to opt first. And the reason is, opt first, I think from both versions are supposed to opt first into Chien-Pao. A lot of people disagree with me. I think it's very close because obviously opting second, you make that setup a lot worse. But if you opt first, you're a lot more likely to hit Iron Hands. And the best thing I realized about opting first is that especially with the Peony version of the deck, what happens is you're more likely to get Flaffy on turn 2. So it's really hard to get Flaffy in general with the Peony version, because what happens is you go to such a small hand size early in the game that's like you don't draw a lot of cards and you're having to hit this very like specific Ultra Ball to try and hit it. And also you have to avoid discarding the Flaffies, depending on what your line of Flaffy is in the version. I was playing 1-1. I think it's correct to play at least 2 Flaffy because discarding it is so relevant, but a lot of the times it gets discarded, but you get Flaffy on turn 2, which just gives you like so much more energy. And then you can you hit your attacks more often, because the thing is with Chien-Pao matchup, if you hit a knockout, like your optimal KO every turn, you always win. So let's say for example, let's say you go first, they do something, they pass with like a Frigid active. If you go Iron Hands, then they kill you with Power, and then you kill them back with Miraidon, you always win. Essentially always win. Now there is a caveat to this, and the main one is they have one specific play. So if you go Iron Hands early on, let's say like a Friggy, they kill you with Chien-Pao, and then you kill them back with Miraidon. There is the situation where they can go Greninja, knock out your Flaffy / Mareep, whatever you have, and then they can kill your Squawk on the next turn with either Cross Switch Iron Hands or Counter Catch Iron Hands, and take their last 3 to win. So basically the way to avoid that is to either try and set up an Iron Hands, set up another Iron Hands. I found that sometimes you can get away with Mew EX as well. That happened to me once. I got Mew EX onto Frigi, but that's pretty rare, I would say. But you just have to be prepared for it, or like Bravery Charm, or don't evolve the Flaffy and then Bravery Charm the Mareep is something else you can do. I mean, it's something just to make sure you never lose to it, but I think keeping that in the back of your mind is that's going to be their key strategy to come back on you at the end of the game. And sometimes they'll hit it and there was actually nothing you could do about it. But that's basically the only way you lose if you're actually drawing well. So if you can keep that in mind, if you don't have to evolve to Flaffy, sometimes you can get wins out of that in games that you wouldn't. There isn't really much to say on the matchup because most of the time you're just trying to take 2 prizes every turn. Really focus on trying to take 2 prizes every turn, regardless of what they do. Just try and take 2 prizes. And you're either Iron Hands or Miraidon in this matchup. The next matchup is Roaring Moon. I think it definitely is Turbo, and I think it's Path as well. You have to up second into Roaring Moon. I don't think this matchup is that great, but it also depends a lot on their list. Something I wanted to mention that I think is really important. So there's a situation that comes up a lot when you're going first, because Roaring Moon is also opting second into you. So, you know, half the time you're going to be going first. If you go first, it's pretty hard to work out what you're actually supposed to discard, what you're supposed to basically sack to them out of Mareep and Zapdos. And I mean, it's way less obvious in the Miraidon matchup, but you basically have to sack the Mareep over the Zapdos. You can never sack the Zapdos because they're just going to kill you with Roaring Moon and make it super difficult for you to do anything. You know, you'll feel happy that you can like Raichu kill their Squawk for 1 turn, but eventually you'll run out of ways to kill them because they're really going to try hard to avoid Frenzied Gouging because that's what gives you the easy KOs. If they ever Frenzied Gouging, it's really easy. The main thing that you want to do, I mean, it's pretty obvious. If they, you know, go more Peko, you really want to Iron Hands. You don't stretch for like Boss Raikou. It's just worse than going for Toe and Iron Hands on a more Peko or a Greninja on a 1 prizer. This is if you're going second. And then, because the issue for them at that point is they either have to ignore the Iron Hands, which means you can potentially boss their Greninja or boss their Squawk or hit any range of boss targets to take a massive amount of prizes, or they have to Frenzied Gouge your Iron Hands, or they play Capsules, which is way worse for you. If they're running the Bribonic Capsules, then it's actually really scary because they'll just go, Capsule, they're active, Bribonic Capsule it, and then kill you, and then you basically have no way to do that. You can play around this Bravery Charm to make it more likely. And the Capsules are really what makes it hard. I think the best Roaring Moon lists right now, Roaring Moon obviously hasn't done very well recently, but I think the best Roaring Moon lists right now are running no Capsule and just Turbo Water. So if they do have Capsules, there's a couple, you really have to focus on playing around it. And just like benching Raichu early and getting energies on it can be super important. And just basically any way you can like muster up more damage, then try and boss around and then hit with Iron Hands as well can also work. Even just an arm press on a Squawk can help you if you could. That's all the energies you can get just to try and get them to hit Frenzied Gouging, but it's not very likely in the games you're losing. I think this matchup's unfavored. A lot of people have said that they think it's exactly 50-50. I think it's unfavored for both variants, but I do think you have to off second regardless of which variant you're playing. Giratina Lost Zone. I have mixed opinions on whether you're supposed to go first or second in this matchup. I think you're supposed to go, I think the Path variant is supposed to go first. I really think the Turbo variant is supposed to go second. This matchup is pretty bad. The way that you win this matchup essentially is you have to get really, really far ahead. So your deck is not capable of killing 2 Giratina VSTARs. You're just not. You could at best kill 1. So there's a few ways you can get ahead. A lot of people say that you should basically hold and try and kill the Giratina Vs and not go for Iron Hands too early, because it's just going to get knocked out and then you don't really have anything. I personally, definitely with the Turbo version, I don't know about the Path version, but definitely with the Turbo version, I think you're supposed to Iron Hands basically as soon as possible. I think you're supposed to op second and then Iron Hands ASAP. And basically you just need to take a 4 prize lead or you're going to lose. If they hit Tina too fast on you, you always lose. So if you give them the going second, like if you go first and they go second, what's most of the time going to happen is they chorus on turn 1, then they chorus on turn 2. And then they just kill you with Giratina and take 2 prizes, and then you kind of have to respond to this Giratina way before you're ready to. Whereas if you're off second, there's a reasonable chance that they whiff their attack with Giratina. They don't get Abyss Seeking, they have to hit triple Comfy to hit their attack. It's really hard. Obviously, the issue with that is Path, but I think this matchup is pretty bad in general. So, like, hoping that you have the Path out, especially with my and most people's Turbo lists, which run 3 to 4 hours to stadiums, you have at least a decent shot to get out of stadiums. I think playing into that is the best way to play the matchup. And then basically, once you get to the end of the game, hopefully you're up 4 prizes at this point. You went either Iron Hands into Miraidon, or you just went double Iron Hands. And then you're just trying to 2-shot their Giratina in basically any way possible. If you can set up the Raichu to 1-shot, great. It doesn't happen very often. Either try and hit boss on their Giratina V, or like go do something else from there. The next matchup, Lost Zone Box. I think this is relatively straightforward. As any deck, you're just trying to Iron Hands as early as possible. So the issue with the matchup is with either the Radzard or the Roaring Wind Iron Hands variant is, so firstly for the Radzard variant, if they kill your Iron Hands on 4 prizes, you've essentially lost the game. There's almost nothing you can do. You want up second in this matchup, 100%. There's absolutely no question. I don't care which Miraidon variant you're playing, you have to up second into a normal Lost Zone deck without Path. The main idea is you just Iron Hands turn 1. You can put ideally you'd hit Bravery Charm on it, and then you're really just praying that they can't kill you back with Radzard, or they're just playing the other version. Now, the other version is a different way to win. They have Kyogre, which is scary in and of itself. But basically, yeah, if you get Radzarded on turn 2, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. You just kind of lose. If you're playing against the Kyogre version, it's a bit different. And I think the best way to play around this sort of Kyogre version is you basically just have to go as fast as possible. And if you play 1 Iono, it's a massive deal into them. Even just Ionoing them to 4 is such a big deal. Always bump their stadium basically as soon as possible. Because Beach Court, if you're playing the Beach Court, it's way worse for them to have Beach Court and play them Pokestop, and they're not running that many Pokestop. A lot of the time you will lose to them hitting their Kyogre combo, and stuff like that happens, but there's nothing you really do about that. If they're forced to kill you with Roaring Moon, you essentially just win. Or not always, obviously, Kyogre, but you begin in a really good spot. You're supposed to just kill back with Raikou at that point, and Raikou is your basically secondary attacker, and if you whiff an attack with Iron Hands' Amp at any point, Raikou is your backup. It's not terrible. Like, if you Raikou and they have to Roaring Moon you back, it's still good for you. Sometimes they usually shouldn't. You can go into Amp something else and then Amp the Roaring Moon after they gouge your Iron Hands. Is a possible play. I mean, there isn't really much to say about this. Most of the time you're just trying to punch into the active, but that's a few strategies that some situations that can come up that would make something different, but definitely up second. Okay, Miraidon. The Miraidon Mirror. How do you play the Miraidon Mirror? I played actually a really good amount of the Miraidon Mirror, and I think it's really interesting. Up second, for sure. Personally, up seconds is favored. On turn 1, you can't sack Zapdos. I think this is a really important thing that I learned, that if you're playing Miraidon, it's really important, and you might already know this, but you can never afford to sack the Zapdos turn 1. You have to sack Mareep. Ideally, you go double Mareep and then sack 1 so they can't rope into your Zapdos. Because the thing is, if they Iron Hands on your Zapdos, you instantly lose. Because you're staring down an Iron Hands that you can't kill with Miraidon or anything except Raichu. It's super hard and super unrealistic to like think that you're going to chain Raichu attack into other things. The main thing, you have to sack the Zapdos, and then you're kind of just playing 2-2. The charms are super important in this matchup. The version I played Lost Vacuum essentially for the mirror, because it doubles as a stadium bump, but not having a way to bump Bravery Charm the mirror is so bad, because you're just trying to play one-shot war, and that's another reason that you can't sack the Zapdos, is because even if they don't have a Bravery Charm on their first Iron Hands, you're gonna have to use Raichu, and then they're gonna kill your Raichu with a Miraidon with Bravery Charm, and then essentially you have no response to that. So playing from behind for this matchup honestly cannot be terrible. It can be not terrible as long as you just find a good turn to punch with a Bravery Charm. I don't really have a lot else to say on this matchup. Like, it's just another turbo matchup, which is a lot of Miraidon matchups at the end of the day. So Gardevoir EX. Gardevoir EX is the next matchup, and this matchup I think is very interesting because of the way that the end game plays out. So obviously this matchup is very favored if you're playing turbo, and even if you're playing the path version, it's relatively favored as long as you can hit the turn 1 Iron Hands, which I don't hit every game with any version, but it can be important. I think it's very important to note that on turn 1 you can keep a Sealstone target, and I've actually realized that the best Sealstone target is Raichu. So Mew EX is insane in this matchup because it blocks any of their late game win cons, or it makes them much harder. So their late game win cons, if you've Iron Hand, let's say you've taken 4 prizes, it's very hard for the Gardevoir to win, but there are a few key ways they can win, and here's how you avoid them as Miraidon. The ways I've taken advantage of Miraidon in the past as Gardevoir EX. So essentially them not having any way to kill, you having any way to kill Gardevoir can be super bad, and having Raichu on board is fine. So basically what they're going to do is you're going to take your full prize with Iron Hands. Most likely they're going to go Arcana, kill your Iron Hands at that point, and they're going to take the knockout on the Arcana with Raikou, or Miraidon's also fine. You can kill it with Zapdos, but you're better off just killing with the 2 prize because it doesn't really matter because all you need is 1 prize remaining. So you're better off probably killing with Raikou at that point. But Miraidon's also fine if you only had board space for Miraidon in the early game, because you went like, let's say, Squawk, Mew, Raichu, Iron Hands, like Miraidon, and then your Sealstone target, which you always have to take. You always have to take and then Mareep as well. You always have to take a Sealstone target. I think that's super important. That a lot of mistakes I made in the beginning was not grabbing a Sealstone target off the first Miraidon and then peony, and then not like peonying and squawking, and then drawing the Sealstone and not having the Sealstone target, because it seems pretty like intuitive when you're getting Squawkabilly and Mew that you just go, okay, well, Miraidon, Iron Hands, Mareep, and then like I say you started. But a lot of the time it kind of feels natural to not get a Sealstone target, so I think it's pretty important to do that. Like setting up Raichu, making sure you have Raichu set up so you can actually kill an EX, because yeah, they're gonna try and like kill your Mew EX with their Gardevoir EX and make you whiff KO, or they're gonna go for Gust, your Flaffy, and Screamtail. So I think it's also super important in the matchup that if you bench Flaffy, you really want an energy on that Flaffy, which most of the time doesn't cost you that much. But you always have to do it. Never leave the energy off Flaffy. This happens in a lot of matchups as well that I didn't mention, like the Giratina matchup. You need the energy on Flaffy because a lot of their endgame plays when they're really far behind is just counter catch a kill bench. Iono to 1 card and then kill the bench with either Screamtail or Sableye in the other situation. And then you whiff away to switch because you don't actually have that many switch cards. I think switch card is a super big deal for the deck. But if you don't have it, it can be, but it does mean that you don't have as many outs to Flaffy. So escape rope becomes much more important. And then sometimes you have to escape rope early and you burn all your escape ropes and you have barely any ways to switch at the end of the game. That's basically what I have for this matchup, and make sure you keep space for Mew EX also. Don't go all in for Iron Hands. Not worth it. Well, it can be worth it, but like sometimes if you bench Lumi, you're better off going for Mew EX than Mareep, for example. Mew EX has a lot of value in the matchup. My opinion, you should always go first against Gardevoir EX. They don't do anything on turn 1. It makes your turn 2 hands odds better. You can hit Flaffy more likely. I think it's a lot better to go first. As the Gardevoir side, I always want to be going first, and so that makes me believe that the Miraidon should also be going first, which I think is just true. Alright, Mew VMAX. So I have very split ideas for how you should play it against DTE and Fusion. It has to be said this matchup is very, very bad, but there are a few things you can do. So the main focus of the matchup is taking 2 prizes every turn. Now, killing Mew VMAX is so incredibly difficult that it's basically never going to happen. Against the DTE version, you should essentially, I think you're 100% going first, because obviously they're going to path you turn 1 if you up second. I don't really care what version you're going. I think it's always up first. They're going to path you turn 1, and that's going to be super annoying for you to deal with in it. But you can actually path them turn 1 if you're playing the other version, which makes it slightly more annoying for them. Or if you're just playing the turbo version, it's still just better so that you don't get path bricked yourself. So the main thing in this matchup is that hitting boss and Raikou/Miraidon every turn is so incredibly difficult. You're essentially always going to get the first 2 prizes and be winning the game. If you hit an attack every turn, you always win. But the issue comes when they basically put 2 Mew VMAX in play, they play Path, they play Iono, and you basically can't hit through 2 of them. So what is your strategy? Well, actually, if in the early game, if you get the option, instead of killing Genesect, you're supposed to kill Mew Vs in this matchup, just to make it as difficult as possible for them to set up 2 Mew VMAX. Obviously, you're supposed to Iron Hands 1 prizes against Fusion. If they ever go for Meloetta, then you're just supposed to Iron Hands it, which can obviously that makes it incredibly difficult. That can be very difficult, but it is what you're supposed to do. Setting up Flaffy is super important in this matchup because you are really low on energies, unlike, for example, like the Gardevoir matchup or anything like that where Mareep isn't 100% necessary. You literally need to set up Flaffy to ever have enough energies to finish the game against Mew VMAX. But essentially, you just want to put yourself in situations where Escape Rope is getting 2 prizes, because if you're in that position, you actually have reasonable winning odds at the end of the game, is what I've found. But once they have 2 Mew VMAXs, they go for all that. It's really tough. Yeah, that's basically all I have for that matchup. Attack with your attacks. Entei and Valiant. So some people have split opinions. I think this matchup's really close for both versions. But you do have a lot of issues. So the main issue is you can't bench Mareep. If you ever bench Mareep, they're just going to Yoga Loop. But sometimes in the mid game, you can bench it when they board lock themselves out of Metachamp, but it's so rare. Like if they have like no good attackers, like if they can't attack with Radzard and Metacham in the same turn, sometimes you can bench Mareep, and if they go Metacham, that's fine, but I just don't think that's the best way to play this matchup. I think it's better. So basically, your best starter is Miraidon. This is actually a lot of the reason that I put 3 Miraidon in my deck to begin with, is for this Entei Iron Valiant matchup. Because starting Miraidon, if you go first, so firstly, up second, if you do go first, starting Miraidon, you basically just want to bench no Pokemon, or like 1 Mon. A second Miraidon you can bench, but essentially just no Pokemon, so they can't kill your Miraidon, and they can't even do substantial damage to it. They can't do enough to basically ping it off over 2 turns after you switch card, is what you're really looking for. And then basically you just try and do that, and then you're just trying to hit 2 prizes every turn. You're just trying to go 2-2-2. They have Radzard, you have no way to attack with a 1 prizer, but you can rope around their Radiant Zard at any turn where they attack with it. Yeah, and even past turn 1, you still want to keep your bench as low as possible. Now, sometimes you will want to go into Raikou if they full bench themselves, because they kind of don't want to full bench either. Because if they full bench and then you full bench to get a Raikou kill, it makes it a lot easier. Because basically, if you go second or if you go first and start Miraidon, you're going to be the one who's ahead. But the thing is, they're way more consistent at hitting knockouts. So I think it's slightly unfavored. At this point, people have told me that it's very unfavored to it's favored. I don't really know, but the issue is, like, you actually have to chain attacks over and over, and it can get difficult because if like having to chain a Miraidon attack into a Miraidon attack into a Miraidon attack is so tough. So if you get a Raikou attack, you want to go for it on the turn that you get the opportunity to attack with it, because sometimes you won't get the attack later. And also having to hit rope is harder, while they don't really struggle to hit rope / boss later in the game because their attacks are so efficient. And sometimes they also ping off Squawk, but most of the time if you hit 1 switch card, I think it's important to stay conscious of exactly how much damage they can do to like knock out a Squawk, because if they start 60-60, they do like 60 to Squawk, and then maybe they do like 20 something the next turn because they have to do damage to your Miraidon to knock it out or something, then they can ping it. So, going hard for a switch card at that point, maybe peoning or Arvening for a switch card just to make sure you don't die is really important at that point. But in general, I'm not happy to see this matchup, but it's also not the end of the world, so. Alright. Block Lax. I played a lot of Block Lax today. In the coming days, I will have a video on Block Lax. But there's a few ways that you can play this matchup, and the strategy that I worked out the best. So I got told one strategy the other day, and it's something a lot of people have said to me, and it doesn't work for a few reasons. The strategy is basically you go Miraidon active, you go Miraidon, Zapdos, Raikou, and one more Pokemon, I think it's Mew EX. Basically, you full board with Pokemon, and then you just slow attach to all your Pokemon. And with the 18 energy build, you have enough energy to attach to all your Pokemon so everything can attack. Why doesn't this work? It doesn't work because of Avery, Echoing Horn, and Counter Catcher. If you put a bunch of Pokemon in play and then you put all your energy on all your Pokemon, one, you're going to be incredibly slow because they're just going to keep counter-catching new Pokemon that doesn't have energy on it. So while it's theoretically possible, it's going to take you a long time to set up your full Exodia. And by the time you set up your full Exodia, what they're going to do is they're just going to go, okay, Avery, Echoing Horn out, whatever random Pokemon, and then counter-catcher it. And then you go -1 energy and you don't have enough energy to attach to everything. It's worth keeping in mind that you have to play around Mimikyu, so getting Zapdos out can sometimes be important. You can also go for Zapdos after they go for the Mimikyu, so once it's in the active, then you go, okay, Miraidon for Zapdos. And I think that is the best way to do it. I think it's really important to stay conscious of your hand and make sure that you try to keep Pokemon out of hand and discard if possible. I think going for a full turbo like Squawk, all this just doesn't make sense objectively in the matchup. You're supposed to go as slow as possible. Unless, obviously, maybe you open a bunch of Pokemon you have nowhere to get rid of them, then maybe you can consider going full turbo because you're going to get Erika's really soon anyways. But essentially, what you're trying to do is like go, okay, like 1 or 2 Miraidons, and Raikou are your main attackers, Miraidons and Raikou. And then you just put just enough energy on to attack with them, and then you just start punching. And you ideally don't have any Pokemon in hand. It's really hard for them to actually make a play on your board. And then when they, you know, bring up something that maybe you can't attack with, or you don't have the energy yet, you can use your Rope and Switch cards to get an attack with Miraidon. Miraidon is an insane attacker. And it's also really important to note that using your boss to boss Rotom and then retreat out of it is super good. And then retreat and then get a KO. So you can KO with Raichu. Usually KOing with Raichu is not advised because you lose all your energies. But a 2-shot, or if you can vacuum their tool and go for a vacuum their Bravery Charm, or they just didn't attach Bravery Charm to begin with and you get a free kill on their Rotom. You want to kill the Rotom basically as soon as possible because it blocks their draw, which they basically need in a matchup like this because they are really strained on resources, because you do so much. You actually, you do a lot. I don't think there's much else. Just basically, yeah, attach, small bench, attack. That's the simple of it. And now, I only have one more matchup, and it's Urshi Intel, but this matchup is insanely straightforward, and the game, basically, every single game gets decided on turn 1. You opt second in this matchup, 100%. There is no way I'm opting first in this matchup, because I need him to brick. And then, or not brick. So, essentially, on turn 1, you either, if you can Iron Hands kill an Inteleon V, you win. If you can Miraidon kill their only Urshifu, you win. Anything else loses. Those are the only 2 plays that can win the game. Otherwise, they obviously full brick, or they don't get turn 2 Urshi attack. That can also win. But if you don't hit one of these stipulations, you're almost on the verge of conceding. So do anything to kill these. You might think you're cool by Iron Hands killing a Remoraid. You're not. You're going to instantly lose the game to them attacking you with Urshifu. They attack you once with Gale Thrust, and then they rapid fully kill your active, and it's just GG's. You have absolutely no chance of winning. You're really hoping they start Inteleon V. It's by far the best starter for you. And then, yeah, you just go from there. And you have to go first because you need them to set up as weak as possible, as said. So, oh yeah, and for block lax as well, turn 1 Path is really strong, and Path throughout the game is really strong if you're playing the Path version. I've been playing a lot of Turbo, but if you're playing the Path version, you absolutely need to Path them. That's, you know, anyways. Back to Urshi. The end, if you hit the Iron Hands kill on their Inteleon V, perfect, you just 2-shot the Urshi. There's not much to think about, just hit it with Miraidon, hit it with Raikou. Keep in mind that you might be missing a 2-shot if you attack with Raikou because their bench is going to be super small. So just like, you know, just keep in mind, it's possible that you're only doing like 100 damage to their Rapid Strike Urshi and you don't even have a 2-shot if they kill your Zapdos. I have done it, so. Anyways, I don't think I have much else for the matchup guide. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a sub. Yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.